The war room on Nexus Prime was filled with tension. General Thexerel stood at the center of the massive circular chamber, his forearms crossed in frustration. The holographic display above him showed 3 star systems, all marked in red. 3 coalition worlds had fallen to the Vargesh Empire in less than 2 weeks. The Krillian general was 8 feet tall, covered in natural armor plates that could stop most weapons. His species had fought in wars for thousands of years. They were considered the strongest warriors in the galaxy. But even the mighty Krillians were losing this war. Around the table sat commanders from a dozen different species. Each one looked worried. The Vargesh were brutal fighters who believed in overwhelming force. They had more ships, more soldiers, and they never showed mercy. Every battle against them ended with massive casualties. A door at the far end of the chamber opened. 4 humans walked in. Thexerel looked at them with disappointment. Humans were small compared to most species in the coalition. They had no natural armor, no enhanced strength, no special abilities. The one leading them was barely 6 feet tall. He wore a simple dark uniform with no medals or decorations. Commander Jin-Ho Park walked to the table with calm confidence. Behind him came 3 others. Lieutenant Dayun Kim carried herself like a coiled spring, ready to move at any moment. Sergeant Taeyang Choi moved so quietly that some of the alien commanders didn't notice him until he was right beside them. Corporal Haewon Lee had her eyes on a data pad, already analyzing the room's systems. "You are the Special Forces Team Earth sent?" Thexerel asked. His voice carried clear doubt. "Phantom Squadron reporting as requested, General," Jin-Ho replied. Thexerel looked them over again. "I asked Earth for military support. They sent me 4 soldiers. 4. 4 is all you need," Daan said with a slight smile. Several alien commanders made sounds that might have been laughter. A Krillian captain named Vorna stepped forward. She was a veteran of 30 campaigns. Scars covered her armor. She had seen real combat, real war. "No offense to your species," Vorna said, "but you have no armor. No shields. You are half my size. How exactly do you plan to fight the Vargesh?" Taeyang finally spoke, his voice quiet. "By not fighting them the way you do." Thexerel waved a hand dismissively. "We need soldiers who can stand in battle. The Vargesh respect only strength. They will crush anything weak." Jin-Ho remained calm. "General, with respect, you've been losing because you fight the way they expect. Your tactics are predictable. You march armies against armies. You trade casualties. Against the Vargesh numbers, you will always lose that exchange. And what would you suggest?" Thexerel asked, his tone sharp. "We suggest you let us do what we do best," Jin-Ho said. He gestured to the holographic display. "Your intelligence reports show a Vargesh forward operating base on Karenfi's moon. They are using it to coordinate attacks on your supply lines. Take out that base and you disrupt their entire offensive in this sector." "That base has 3,000 Vargesh troops," Vorna said. "Automated defenses. Sensor arrays that can detect ships from 1,000,000 kilometers away. It would take a full assault fleet to breach those defenses." "It would take a fleet to breach them head-on," Haewon said, looking up from her datapad. "We don't plan to knock on the front door." Thexerel studied the human commander. "You believe you can infiltrate that base? 4 of you against 3,000 Vargesh? We don't need to fight 3,000, Jin-Ho explained. "We need to extract the intelligence you need. That requires precision, not force." The general was quiet for a moment. Then he made a decision. "Captain Vorna, you will accompany them. Observe their methods. When they fail, you will extract whatever intelligence you can and report back." Vorna looked surprised. "General, I'm a combat officer, not a—" "That is an order, Captain. I want a first-hand account of why human special forces are unsuitable for this war. We have already lost too many soldiers. I will not commit more resources based on Earth's reputation alone." Jin-Ho nodded. "Captain Vorna is welcome to join us. We leave in 2 hours. I suggest you pack light." 2 hours later, Vorna stood in the hangar bay watching the humans prepare. They didn't move like soldiers preparing for battle. There was no formal inspection of weapons, no battle cries or rituals. They just checked their equipment with quiet efficiency. Their ship was small, a stealth insertion craft that looked fragile compared to the armored assault ships Vorna was used to. Inside it was cramped and filled with equipment she didn't recognize. "Your armor," Dawn said, pointing to Vorna's standard Krillian combat gear. "It's too reflective. You'll need to cover it." "This armor has saved my life in 30 battles, Vorna said. "And it will get you killed in this one if you don't adapt." Tai Yang said, handing her a dark material. Stealth isn't about strength. It's about not being seen. Vorna reluctantly applied the covering. The humans wore lightweight gear that seemed inadequate for combat. Their weapons were smaller than standard coalition rifles. Everything about them seemed wrong for war. As the ship launched, Jin-Ho pulled up the mission briefing. The Vargesh base has a blind spot in its sensor coverage. A gravitational anomaly from the moon's core creates interference. We will insert there. That blind spot is only 3 kilometers wide, Vorna said. Your pilot would need to be perfect. Our pilot is perfect, Haywan said from the cockpit. Watch and learn. The approach to Karenai-4's moon was unlike anything Vorna had experienced. Haywan flew the ship through patterns that seemed random, but avoided every sensor sweep. The craft moved in complete silence, its systems running on minimal power. Vargesh sensors just swept our position, Haywan announced calmly. They detected nothing. How? Vorna asked. We are right here. We are, Haywan smiled. But I'm making their sensors think we're cosmic dust. The trick is knowing what they're looking for and making sure you don't match that profile. The ship touched down in a crater 3 kilometers from the Vargesh base. As they disembarked, Vorna noticed something strange. The humans moved differently now. Their casual manner was gone. They became shadows, each step deliberate and silent. Jin-Ho signaled without words. Taiyang moved to a high position. Dayan checked her equipment. Haywan activated a device that Vorna didn't recognize. They worked together like one organism, each knowing exactly what the others would do. Stay close, Jin-Ho told Vorna. Watch everything. Don't use your communicator unless I tell you. Sound discipline is critical. As they moved toward the base, Vorna realized something that made her uneasy. She had fought in 30 campaigns. She had faced enemies that terrified most soldiers. But watching these 4 humans move through hostile territory with absolute confidence, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. She felt like she was the one who had no idea what real war looked like. The moon's surface was dark and cold. Vorna followed the humans across the rocky terrain, trying to move as quietly as they did. It was harder than it looked. Every step they took seemed calculated. They avoided areas where their footprints would be obvious. They moved through shadows even when there seemed to be no shadows to hide in. After an hour of movement, they reached a ridge overlooking the Vargesh base. Vorna had seen the intelligence reports, but seeing it in person was different. The installation was massive. Guard towers dotted the perimeter. Automated weapons tracked the sky. Patrols moved in precise patterns. It looked impossible to breach. Taiyang lay flat on the ridge, completely still. He watched the base through a scope that seemed far too simple for this kind of work. Vorna had advanced targeting systems in her helmet. Taiyang just had his eyes and his experience. Guard change in 7 minutes, he whispered. Patrol pattern alpha repeats every 12 minutes. Sensor sweep comes from the north tower every 30 seconds. You can see all that? Vorna asked quietly. I can see the pattern, Taiyang replied. Everything has a pattern. You just need to watch long enough to find it. Haywan was working with her equipment, small devices that Vorna didn't recognize. Their communication network runs on a standard military frequency. They change encryption every hour, but the rotation is predictable. I can be inside their system in about 3 minutes. Inside their system? Vorna was confused. You mean you can break their security? Break it? No, Haywan smiled. I'm going to join it. As far as their computers know, I'm just another sensor node. They won't even notice me listening. Jin-Ho studied the base layout on his tablet. Daun, how long to disable the north sensor array? 2 minutes if I can get close, Daun said. But getting close is the hard part. What if you didn't need to get close? Jin-Ho asked. Daun thought for a moment, then grinned. The power conduit. If I overload it from the auxiliary station, the whole grid would fluctuate. They would think it's a maintenance issue. Do it, Jin-Ho ordered. Vorna watched as the team split up without any more discussion. They had been together for maybe 6 hours total, but they moved like they had trained together for years. Each person knew exactly what to do. Daun disappeared into the darkness. Taiyang remained on the ridge. Haywan continued her work with the communications system. Jin-Ho gestured for Vorna to follow him. They moved along the base perimeter, staying low and moving only when patrols looked away. Jin-Ho seemed to know exactly where every Vargesh soldier would look and when. It was like he could predict their movements before they made them. How do you know where they will be? Vorna whispered. Training, Jin-Ho replied. Sentries get bored. They fall into patterns. They check the same spots at the same time. Once you understand the psychology, you can move through their coverage like a ghost. A voice came through their earpieces. It was Hey-Wan. I'm in their system. They have no idea. I can see everything they see. Good, Jinho said. Guide us to the command center. Patrol coming your way, Hey-Wan warned. 3 Vargesh soldiers, 40 meters and closing. Jinho pulled Vorna behind a storage container. They pressed flat against the cold metal. The Vargesh patrol walked past, so close that Vorna could hear their breathing through their helmets. Her hand moved to her weapon, but Jinho shook his head slightly. Not yet. The patrol passed without seeing them. Clear, Hai-Wan said. Next patrol in 90 seconds. They moved again. Quick, silent, efficient. Vorna had fought in battles where thousands of soldiers clashed. This was different. This was precision. Every movement had a purpose. Nothing was wasted. Die-in status? Jinho asked quietly. At the auxiliary station, Dayun replied. Setting the charge now. Give me 30 seconds. Jinho and Vorna reached a position near the main command building. Through a window, Vorna could see Vargesh officers working at computer terminals. The intelligence they needed was in there. But the building was guarded. Sensors covered every entrance. It looked impossible to enter without triggering alarms. Charge set, Dayun announced. Triggering in 3, 2, 1. The lights across the base flickered. Alarm sounded. Vargesh soldiers started running toward the power station. The command center emptied as officers went to investigate the problem. Now, Jinho said. They entered through a side door that Hai-Wan unlocked remotely. Inside the command center, computer screens showed confused Vargesh engineers trying to figure out what caused the power surge. None of them noticed 2 figures moving through their facility. Jinho went straight to a terminal and inserted a device. Hey-Wan, I need access. Already done, she replied. You have full access to their database. Download everything. Data flooded into the device. Battle plans. Troop movements. Supply lines. Everything the coalition needed to predict the next Vargesh offensive. It was intelligence that would take months to gather through normal means. Jinho was getting it all in minutes. Download complete, Jinho said. Time to leave. Wait, Hey-Wan said urgently. Patrol returning to command center. 4 soldiers, 20 seconds. Jinho looked at Vorna. Can you fight quietly? Vorna nodded. She might not understand human tactics, but she knew how to fight. The door opened. 4 Vargesh soldiers entered. They saw Jinho at the terminal. One reached for his communicator to raise the alarm. He never made it. Vorna moved faster than she had in years, her training taking over. The Vargesh went down before they could make a sound. Jinho pulled his device from the terminal. Good work. Now we really need to leave. They moved back through the facility. Outside, the base was still in chaos. Vargesh soldiers ran in multiple directions, trying to fix the power problem, unaware that the real threat had already come and gone. All units, return to extraction point, Jinho ordered. Dayun appeared from the shadows. Tae-Yang materialized from his position on the ridge. They moved as one unit back toward their ship. Behind them, the Vargesh base slowly realized something was wrong, but by then it was too late to stop it. On the ship, as they prepared for departure, Hey-Wan added one final touch, sending a corrupted data packet into their sensor logs. By the time they review the recordings, they will think their system malfunctioned. They won't even know we were here. Vorna sat in silence as the ship lifted off. The Vargesh never fired a shot. No alarms had been raised until they were already gone. The base never knew it had been infiltrated. I don't understand, Vorna finally said. We could have fought them. We had the element of surprise. Why all the deception? Jinho looked at her. Because fighting is the last resort, not the first option. Every battle you fight is a risk. Every shot fired is a chance for something to go wrong. We got what we came for without losing anyone. That's not just a successful mission. That's a perfect mission. But you are soldiers, Vorna said. Your purpose is to fight. No, Tae-Yang said quietly. Our purpose is to win. Sometimes the best way to win is to never let the enemy know they lost. Vorna thought about her 30 campaigns, all the battles she had fought, all the times she had charged into combat because it was the Krillian way. She had always believed that courage meant facing your enemy directly. Now she was starting to think that maybe real courage was knowing when not to fight at all. The intelligence from Karen 4 changed everything. General Thexrel studied the data with growing concern. The Vargesh were planning something massive, an attack on Tarvek Station, one of the largest civilian habitats in Coalition space. 50,000 people lived there. Most of them were families. War Chief Grakthar was leading the assault personally. The Vargesh commander was known for his brutality. He didn't just conquer worlds, he destroyed them. The data showed he was already in position, using the station's urban structure to hide his forces while civilians still remained. Thexrel called an emergency meeting. This time, when Phantom Squadron entered the war room, the other commanders paid attention. Word had spread about the impossible. Mission at Karen IV. 4 humans had infiltrated a fortified base and escaped without the enemy even knowing they were there. We need to evacuate Tarvek Station, Thexrel said. But we cannot do it while Vargesh forces control key sections. They will target the evacuation ships. How many Vargesh are there? Jinho asked. At least 2,000 soldiers, Vorna answered. She stood beside the human team now, no longer just an observer. They are embedded in the commercial district and the industrial sectors, using civilians as shields. Cowards, one of the alien commanders muttered. Smart, Daun corrected. They know you won't attack with civilians present. They are using your morality against you. Jinho studied the station layout. This is different from our last mission. We can't just extract intelligence and leave. We need to remove the threat. How? Thexrel asked. If we send troops, it becomes a street fight. Civilians will die. Then we make sure the Vargesh can't fight back, Haywan said. She was already working on her computer. The station's infrastructure is all connected. Power, life support, communications. If I can access the control systems, I can create isolated zones. Trap them, Tai Yang said, understanding immediately. Cut off their reinforcements. Force them into kill zones. But Grakthar will be expecting an attack, Vorna warned. He knows you took data from Karen Rafu. He will have prepared defenses. Good, Jinho said. Let him prepare. Prepared enemies make mistakes because they focus on what they expect. We will give him something unexpected. Tarvek Station was massive. Built over decades, it had grown into a complex maze of corridors, maintenance tunnels, and living spaces. The perfect place for urban combat. The perfect place for an ambush. Phantom Squadron inserted through a cargo airlock that the Vargesh weren't monitoring. Vorna came with them armed and ready. She had requested to join the team officially. Thexrel had approved it. She was learning more from these humans in days than she had learned in years of traditional combat. The station was quiet. Too quiet. Civilians had been ordered to shelter in place. The Vargesh moved through the corridors in patrol patterns, searching for coalition forces they expected to attack directly. Haywan, can you access the station systems? Jinho asked. Already in, she replied. Station security is designed to keep people safe, not to keep hackers out. I have full control. Show me Vargesh positions, Jinho ordered. A holographic display appeared on Haywan's device. Red dots showed enemy locations. They were concentrated in 3 areas, just as the intelligence predicted. But there was something else. A larger concentration in the command center. That would be Grakthar. He set a trap, Vorna said. Look at the positioning. He has ambush points covering all major approaches to the command center. He did, Jinho agreed, which means he expects us to come through those approaches. Taeun, how are the station's structural supports? Taeun pulled up construction blueprints. Old station, built in sections over time. Some areas have redundant supports. Others have weak points where new sections were attached to old ones. Can you collapse specific sections without damaging civilian areas? Jinho asked. Taeun studied the blueprints for a long moment. It's risky, but yes. If I place charges at precise locations, I can seal off entire corridors. The structure will hold, but the passages will be blocked. Do it. Taeyang, find me a position with sight lines on the command center. Vorna, you are with me. Haiwan, start feeding the Vargesh false information through their communications. The team split up. Dayun moved through maintenance tunnels, placing her charges with expert precision. Each one was calculated to cause maximum disruption with minimum collateral damage. She worked quickly but carefully. One mistake could kill innocent people. Taeyang found his position 3 levels above the command center. It was a construction area, abandoned and dark, perfect for what he needed. He set up his rifle and waited. Patience was his greatest weapon. Hei-Wan began her psychological operation. She sent false reports through the Vargesh communication network. Coalition forces approaching from the south. Large troop movements detected. Multiple assault teams inbound. None of it was true, but Grakthar didn't know that. The Vargesh commander reacted exactly as Jinho predicted. He reinforced his southern positions. He pulled troops from other areas. He focused all his attention on the threat he expected, not the one that was already inside his perimeter. Charges set, Daun reported. Ready to trigger on your command. Wait for it, Jinho said. He and Vorna were moving through corridors that the Vargesh had abandoned to reinforce other positions. We need them grouped up. Haywan, send another false report. Make it urgent. Coalition commandos breaching Section 7, Haywan transmitted through the enemy network. Multiple casualties. Requesting immediate reinforcement. More Vargesh troops moved to Section 7. They rushed through corridors, weapons ready, expecting to find Coalition soldiers. They found nothing but empty hallways. Now, Jinho ordered. Daun triggered the charges. Explosions echoed through the station, but they were controlled. Precise. Corridors collapsed in specific locations. The Vargesh forces found themselves suddenly cut off from each other. Their carefully prepared defensive positions became isolated traps. Panic spread through the enemy ranks. Their communications were compromised. Their reinforcements were blocked. They didn't know where the attack was coming from or how many enemies they faced. Taeyang took his first shot. A Vargesh officer directing troops from a command position. The officer dropped. Nobody saw where the shot came from. Taeyang fired again. Another officer down. Then another. Each shot was perfectly placed. Each one increased the chaos. In the command center, Grakthar realized what was happening. He had been outmaneuvered. His trap had become his prison. He roared orders at his subordinates. But the communications network was feeding them contradictory information. Some units thought they were under attack from orbital strikes. Others believed coalition armies were flooding the station. Jinho and Vorna reached the command center through a maintenance shaft that didn't appear on standard blueprints. They entered from above, dropping into the room before the Vargesh guards could react. The fight was brief and brutal. Vorna moved with skills she had learned from the humans, combining Krillian strength with tactical precision. Jinho fought with efficiency, every movement designed to end threats quickly. Grakthar stood at the center of the room, his weapon raised. But he didn't fire. He looked at the two soldiers who had destroyed his entire operation and realized something terrible. He had never seen them coming. Surrender, Jinho said calmly. Your forces are scattered. Your communications are compromised. You have lost. Grakthar lowered his weapon, not because he was a coward, but because he finally understood. These humans didn't fight the way anyone expected. They didn't follow the rules of warfare that every other species followed. They made their own rules. And if you didn't adapt, you lost. The capture of War Chief Grakthar sent shockwaves through the Vargesh Empire. Their most celebrated commander had been taken by a team of 4 humans and 1 Krillian. The story spread quickly through both Coalition and Vargesh forces. But stories change as they travel, and this one grew with each telling. Vargesh soldiers began talking in whispers. They said humans could walk through walls, that they could become invisible, that they could kill from impossible distances without making a sound. Some said human special forces were not really human at all, but some kind of ghost warriors sent to punish the wicked. None of it was true, of course, but fear doesn't need truth. Fear only needs belief. General Thexral stood in the war room looking at reports he could barely believe. Vargesh units were refusing orders. Morale was collapsing across multiple fronts, all because of stories about human special forces. This is remarkable, he said to Jinho. Your team has done what entire fleets could not accomplish. You have broken their will to fight. That was always the goal, Jinho replied. Destroying an army is expensive. Breaking their morale costs almost nothing. But the Vargesh are regrouping at the Arcturus Gate, Thexral continued. Intelligence suggests they are preparing one final massive assault. If they break through there, they will have a direct route to our core worlds. Vorna stepped forward. She wore a modified version of human tactical gear now, though she kept her Krillian armor underneath. The Vargesh commanders know they must act before fear completely paralyzes their forces. They will throw everything at Arcturus Gate. How many troops? Daun asked. At least 50,000, Thexral said, plus fleet support. It will be the largest battle of this war. Jinho studied the tactical display. The Arcturus Gate was a natural choke point. a region of space where jump drives couldn't function properly. Any fleet wanting to pass through had to do it slowly, making it perfect for defense. But 50,000 Vargesh troops with fleet support could overwhelm any defensive position through sheer numbers. They expect a battle, Tai Yang said quietly. Large fleets. Massive casualties. A test of strength. Then we give them something different, Jinho said. We give them terror. Haewon looked up from her computer. You want to run a psychological operation against an entire army? Not against an army, Jinho corrected. Against their leadership. Break the commanders and the army breaks itself. The plan was audacious. While coalition fleets prepared for the coming battle at Arcturus Gate, Phantom Squadron would slip behind enemy lines. Their mission was not to gather intelligence or destroy targets. Their mission was to make the Vargesh command structure believe that nowhere was safe. They inserted 3 days before the battle was scheduled to begin. The Vargesh fleet was gathered in a staging area, thousands of ships preparing for their assault. Command vessels held the officers coordinating this massive operation. This is different, Vorna said as they approached the enemy fleet in a captured Vargesh shuttle. We are not infiltrating a base. We are attacking leaders who are surrounded by their own armies. Which is exactly why they won't expect it, Da-un replied. They feel safe here. Safety breeds carelessness. The first target was a command carrier where senior Vargesh officers were planning the assault. Haewon got them aboard by mimicking standard supply shuttle traffic. In a fleet this large, with thousands of ships moving constantly, one small shuttle was invisible. They moved through the carrier like shadows. Vargesh crew members never saw them. Jinho had studied Vargesh ship layouts and knew exactly where officers would be. The team reached the command deck through maintenance corridors that were never guarded, because no one thought an enemy could get this deep. The first officer died in his sleep, never knowing danger was near. They left a mark on the wall above his bed, a simple symbol that meant nothing to most people. But to those who knew the story spreading through the Vargesh ranks, it was the calling card of the human ghost soldiers. The second officer died while reviewing battle plans. One moment he was alone in his quarters. The next moment he was not. Tae-young made it quick and silent. Another mark was left. Another message sent. By morning, 3 senior officers were dead. The Vargesh fleet was in chaos. How had enemies gotten aboard a command carrier in the middle of their own fleet? How had they moved through corridors without being detected? How had they killed officers surrounded by guards? The answers didn't matter. The fear did. Phantom Squadron hit 2 more ships over the next 2 days. Each time they left their mark. Each time the Vargesh became more paranoid. Officers started sleeping with weapons. Guards were doubled, then tripled. Ships were searched top to bottom, but the humans were never found because they were always gone before anyone looked. On the 3rd night, Tae-yang took a shot that would become legendary. A Vargesh admiral was giving a speech to his troops trying to restore morale. He stood on an observation deck surrounded by guards visible to thousands of soldiers. He was telling them that the human ghosts were just propaganda, that there was nothing to fear. The shot came from a distance that should have been impossible. The bullet traveled through space from a position 3 kilometers away, entered through a tiny gap in the ship's shields, and struck the admiral mid-sentence. He collapsed without another word. The Vargesh troops watching didn't know what to believe anymore. Their leaders said the humans were not real threats. Then those same leaders died in ways that seemed impossible. How do you fight an enemy you cannot see, cannot predict, cannot stop? By the time the assault on Arcturus Gate was supposed to begin, the Vargesh fleet was falling apart. Units refused to advance. Officers argued with each other. Some ships even broke formation and retreated, their commanders deciding that survival was better than glory. General Thexeral watched his tactical display in amazement. The massive Vargesh assault never came. The enemy fleet that had been preparing to attack was now in complete disarray, paralyzed by fear of an enemy that numbered only 5 soldiers. I do not understand, he said to Jinho when Phantom Squadron returned. You killed maybe a dozen officers. How did that stop an entire fleet? We didn't stop them, Jinho explained. They stopped themselves. Fear is a weapon that grows stronger the more you think about it. Every Vargesh soldier in that fleet is now looking over their shoulder, wondering if they are next. Every officer is questioning whether their security is adequate. They cannot focus on attacking us because they are too busy trying to protect themselves. Vorna understood now. This was what human special forces did better than any other military in the galaxy. They didn't just fight battles. They made the enemy defeat themselves. The battle is won, Thexrel said slowly. But the war is not over. The Vargish Empire is vast. Even with their morale broken here, they have reserves, other fleets, their homeworlds. Then we take the war to their home, Daun said. We show them that nowhere is beyond our reach. Jinho nodded. If we want to end this war, we need to strike at the head of the snake. The Vargesh Emperor himself. The room fell silent. What Jinho was suggesting was considered impossible. The Vargesh Emperor commanded from his flagship, the Dreadnought Eternal. It was the most heavily defended vessel in the galaxy, surrounded by thousands of escorts, protected by every security measure the Vargesh could devise. That would be a suicide mission, one of the coalition commanders said. Tae Yang smiled slightly. That is what they said about Karen 4 and Tarvek Station. And the Arcturus operation. People keep saying our missions are impossible. We keep proving them wrong. Thexrel looked at the 5 soldiers who had changed the course of the war. He realized that what they were suggesting might actually be possible. Not through strength or numbers, but through the one advantage they had demonstrated again and again. The enemy never saw them coming. The Dreadnought Eternal was a fortress that could fly through space. 10 kilometers long, bristling with weapons, surrounded by a fleet that could conquer star systems. Inside its armored hull, the Vargesh Emperor ruled his empire and directed his wars. Coalition High Command wanted to launch a full assault. They calculated it would take 3 fleets and cost hundreds of thousands of lives. Even then, success was not guaranteed. The Emperor's flagship had never been breached. Many believed it never could be. Jinho looked at the intelligence reports and saw something different. He saw a ship so confident in its defenses that it had become complacent. He saw a command structure so rigid that it could not adapt to unexpected threats. He saw an opportunity. We are going in, he announced to his team. They were in a briefing room on Nexus Prime. General Thexeral was there, along with Vorna and several other coalition commanders. The room was silent after Jinho's statement. 5 soldiers against the most defended target in the galaxy, one commander said. This is beyond bold. This is madness. It is exactly what they won't expect, Daun replied. They are preparing for fleet battles, for massive assaults. They are not ready for us. Haywan displayed the Dreadnought specifications. The ship has 17,000 crew members. 8,000 of them are soldiers. But look at the internal security systems. They are designed to repel boarding parties that come through airlocks. They monitor expected entry points. We don't use expected entry points, Tae Yang said. Exactly, Jinho continued. The Dreadnought has blind spots, areas where internal sensors overlap and create gaps, maintenance sections that are rarely monitored because they are considered too difficult to reach from outside. Vorna studied the display. Even if you get inside, the Emperor is protected by his personal guard. Elite warriors who have trained their entire lives. The Imperial Guard has never failed. They have never faced us, Dayun said simply. Thexrel stood. I cannot order you to do this. The risk is too great. But if you succeed, you could end this war today. The choice is yours. Jinho looked at his team. They had been through impossible missions before. Each time they had succeeded not through superior firepower, but through superior thinking. This would be their greatest test. We volunteer, he said. The insertion was the most difficult part. The Dreadnought sat in orbit around the Vargesh homeworld, protected by scanning systems that could detect a ship from light years away. But Haywan had studied those systems for weeks. She found a pattern in the sensor sweeps, a timing sequence that repeated every 6 hours. They approached in a modified stealth craft, smaller than a standard fighter. It drifted in space like debris, moving with the orbital patterns of destroyed ships from previous battles. To the Vargesh sensors, it was just more wreckage in a battlefield that had seen countless conflicts. Coming up on the maintenance port, Haywan whispered. Even though no one could hear them in the vacuum of space, old habits held. 60 seconds to entry window. The port was designed for repair drones, too small for any normal boarding party. But Phantom Squadron had trained for tight spaces. They entered one at a time, magnetic boots pulling them through the narrow tunnel. Inside the Dreadnought, they found themselves in a maintenance corridor that stretched in both directions. Red lighting marked it as a restricted area, but there were no guards. Why would there be? No one thought an enemy could reach this deep. I am accessing the ship's systems, Heywan said, connecting her device to a data port. I need 2 minutes. Taeyang took position watching their backtrail. Daeyun prepped her equipment. Vorna stood ready, still amazed that they had gotten this far. Jinho reviewed the internal layout, planning their route. I am in their system, Heywan announced. The Emperor is in his command throne room. 50 guards, another 200 soldiers within 60 seconds of his position. Can you get us there without triggering alarms? Jinho asked. I can make their sensors ignore us, but once we engage the Imperial Guard, all the stealth in the galaxy won't help. We will have minutes before the entire ship converges on that location. Minutes is all we need, Jinho said. Move out. They moved through the dreadnought like ghosts. When crew members passed, Heywan routed them down different corridors through false maintenance alerts. When security checkpoints appeared, she created system malfunctions that drew guards away. The team was invisible not because of technology alone, but because of the skill to use that technology perfectly. They reached the level below the throne room. Above them, the Emperor of the Vargesh Empire sat on his command throne, believing himself untouchable. Around him, 50 of the finest warriors in his domain stood ready to die, protecting him. Daeyun, I need an entry point, Jinho said. She studied the ceiling above them. The throne room floor is reinforced, but there is a ventilation junction here. I can create an opening, but it will be loud. Do it. Speed matters more than stealth now. The explosion was small but precise. The floor above them buckled, creating a hole large enough for one person at a time. Alarms immediately started blaring throughout the ship. Jinho went through first. He dropped into the throne room in a roll, coming up with his weapon ready. The Imperial Guard reacted with trained speed, but they had never faced an enemy who appeared from below. It took them a crucial second to adjust. That second was enough. The team came through the hole in rapid succession. Vorna dropped in with a war cry. Her Krillian strength combined with human tactics, making her unstoppable. Taeyang's shots were precise, taking down guards before they could coordinate. Daeyun moved like liquid, always in the right position. The fight lasted less than a minute. The Imperial Guard was skilled, but they fought as individuals. Phantom Squadron fought as one organism, each member covering the others, creating opportunities, exploiting weaknesses. When the last guard fell, Jinho stood before the Emperor's throne. The ruler of the Vargesh Empire looked at the 5 soldiers who had done the impossible and felt something he had not felt in decades. Fear. You cannot escape, the Emperor said, trying to sound confident. My soldiers are coming. Thousands of them. We don't need to escape, Jinho replied. We just need you to understand something. This war is over. You think capturing me will end this? My empire will never surrender. Your empire already has, Heywan said, holding up her device. I have been broadcasting this entire operation to your military command. They are watching their invincible emperor sitting helpless, while 5 soldiers stand in his throne room. They are seeing that everything they believed about their strength was wrong. The emperor's face changed as he understood. Jinho continued. You can order your soldiers to attack us. We will die, but so will you. Or you can order a ceasefire. End this war. Save your people from more defeats they cannot win. Why would I believe you will let me live? Because we are not here to kill you, Jinho said. We are here to show you that continued war is pointless. You cannot defend against us. You cannot predict us. You cannot stop us. Every day this war continues, more of your leaders will die. More of your soldiers will refuse to fight. Eventually your empire will collapse not from our attacks, but from the fear of them. The emperor was silent for a long moment. He could hear his soldiers gathering outside the throne room. He could order them to attack. But he looked at these 5 warriors who had achieved the impossible and realized something important. They had already won. I will order a ceasefire, he said finally. But I want guarantees. You will get them, Jinho replied. The coalition does not want endless war. We want peace. But you needed to understand that peace is your only option. 3 months later, Jinho stood in a classroom on Nexus Prime. Before him sat warriors from a dozen different species. Krillians, Vargesh, humans, and others. They were the first class of the new Coalition Special Operations Training Program. Vorna was there as an instructor now, teaching others what she had learned from the humans. The war was over, ended not with a massive final battle, but with a small team showing an empire that resistance was futile. The most important lesson, Jinho told the class, is that war is not about strength. It is about thinking. Any species can build weapons. Any army can train soldiers. But true victory comes from outthinking your enemy, from doing what they cannot predict, from turning their strengths into weaknesses. He looked at the diverse group before him. Each species had different abilities, different advantages, but they could all learn to think differently. They could all learn to be more than just soldiers. You are here because your commanders believe you have potential. Prove them right. Learn to see what others miss. Learn to move where others cannot. Learn to win battles before they begin. After the class, Taeyang found Jinho looking out at the stars. Thinking about the war? He asked. Thinking about the future, Jinho replied. We showed the galaxy something important. That humans are not strong because of technology or natural abilities. We are strong because we adapt. Because we think. Because we never give up looking for a better way. And now we are teaching others to think like us, Taeyang said. Some people back on Earth think that is dangerous. That we are giving away our advantages. Jinho smiled. Those people don't understand the most important advantage we have.